Okay, it is 2:30 and I think I'm as ready as I'm going to be for this demo. I see people are starting to come on. I hope you guys can hear me okay. That's always a concern. Hello there. This is going to be kind of a strange demo, I think, in the respect that you're probably not going to be able to hear me much when I have the torch on, and I apologize for that, but there is like nothing I can do about that. This kind of torch that I'm using, it's great to enamel with, but it's loud, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear me above the noise of that. But what I'm going to try to do is talk to you guys ahead of time of what I'm doing. I will talk while I'm doing it, but it'll probably be a strain to hear me. And then I'll stop and I'll review everything that I've done. So welcome to everyone that's here. We have some fun things that we're going to do with enameling, with the immersion method of torch-fired enamels. And by that, I mean we are actually dipping a mandrel, these skinny little pieces of stainless steel. There's a couple different sizes. I have the measurements, all the details in the handout that I will have available for you afterwards. But I have a little container with some beads in here. I'm going to focus on solid copper. They turn out to be really pretty when they're done. And then there are beads that are called iron. They're iron beads, probably from China, that are available online, and they're very lightweight. Because they say iron, it sounds like they would be heavy, but they're not. They're very, very lightweight. They can make some interesting beads. And then there are some other that are like a fluted or corrugated, I should say, iron. These are all iron. So if you use solid copper, that's what I would recommend. Copper plate does not work well. And like brass is generally not a great idea. Sometimes you can fire the brass, but a lot of times the enamel will pop off afterwards when it's cool. So things like vintage brass, it's like an antiqued brass, that doesn't work well. It doesn't work at all. And when I was talking about brass, I meant like raw brass. I have torched a few pieces, and a couple of them have been okay, but most of them were not successful. So really the only beads I torch anymore are just the solid copper ones. I do like how they come out. So we'll go over that. We'll go over some of the materials that I use. I'm going to flip the camera down here just a bit so you can see a few things that I have made. This is a copper bead, and this is one of the iron beads. And here is another iron bead. You can get some really nice color combinations if you like to do that. This is also a copper bead that has some of the little millefiori, or otherwise known as floral wafers, on there. And this is the corrugated bead that I showed you. So you can actually make beads in this method. We're also going to touch on making headpins that have the enamel tip, and You can incorporate these in some of your designs, in your jewelry designs. This one I did a double-ended, so that way you could take that wire and you can twist it into your design. I don't know how to describe it other than that. And here's one that I twisted the wire onto. So there are uses. It just is limited only by your own creativity and imagination. Okay, so I'm going to check in with you guys and see who's here and if you have any questions to begin with. But we'll talk about all of this. And I'm in kind of a little different area than usual. I've moved down on the table. I've moved down the table a little bit, and I have to have my exhaust fan on, and I also have another fan pointing at my smoke alarm, because when it gets hot in here, it can set off the smoke alarm. So if you hear that go off, more than likely my house is not on fire, but it's just the smoke alarm doing its thing, which is a good thing. But hopefully that won't happen. It gets quite warm when you torch fire, so I am in a short-sleeved shirt. You should always wear things that are, like cotton, or things that aren't going to be susceptible to being, that aren't flammable, that kind of thing. So you shouldn't have any long flowing sleeves or anything like that. Your hair should be tied back if it's long. And what else? You need to set up yourself for safety. That's first and foremost, anytime you're working with fire. But especially with this torch, this hothead torch that I have here. This is a cylinder of gas. This is propane that I'm using. And this is the torch right here called a hothead. And it just screws onto this. And then I have, this is the bad thing doing it this way, is I have things laid out that you might not be able to see. There's some of my enamel jars. I am working with what's called a bead pulling station, which is right here. This is a little aluminum bread pan that I drop my beads into. This is a better view of the bead pulling station. It's a piece of aluminum, I presume. Maybe it's stainless, I'm not sure. But it has a lip on the bottom of it to go under a ceramic tile or some other heat-proof surface. And it has notches cut in the top, so that helps you remove the bead from the mandrel, because there is actually no other way that I'm familiar with that you can remove the bead safely. So that does this very nicely. And Barbara Lewis, mentioned Barbara Lewis because she's kind of like the pioneer of this immersion method. And this is her bead pulling station. So you can still get these things, well, I shouldn't say still, but you can get these items through their Etsy shop, Painting with Fire. And they sell a whole line of enameling products as well as the bead pulling station. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so let me see here. Does anybody have any questions so far? No, just hellos. So hello, everybody. Okay. Hey, Deb, clear as a bell today. Good. I'm glad your internet connection is good. That is so frustrating when you have internet problems. Okay, so I am going to start with a basic bead. I am going to use one of these little fluted or corrugated iron beads. It blows my mind because it just doesn't seem like it's iron, but it is, okay, just because of the weight. Sometimes when you get these beads, they are packed in, I'm not sure what it is, maybe like rice hulls or something. you don't get them that way, but I mean, they're in a baggie, you know, all beads, but sometimes in the holes of the individual beads, you might find a little hull-like substance in there, and sometimes you can remove them, sometimes you can't, but you will know for sure if you have one in there if your bead kind of catches on fire just momentarily. It's not anything to be worried about. It burns out real fast, but it's just something to be aware of. And I put my bead on the mandrel like this, but ideally we want to keep the bead about that far from the end of the mandrel. And the reason for that is as we dip this hot bead into the enamel powder, that enamel will get on the mandrel and then make it very difficult for removal because of the hole. It's like when you pull it off, I shouldn't show that with my fingers because we don't use our fingers to touch hot things. But when you go to remove it, a lot of times there'll be like an enamel thread that comes off with it, and you want to burn that off if that happens. But by keeping your bead close to the end all the time, not right on the end, but just a little bit like that, it reduces the chance for a lot of enamel buildup on there, okay? And also the bead pulling station, you can reposition your bead with that in those little grooves that the bead pulling station has. So if your bead tends to wander down here, all you need to do is bring it up to one of the V's in the bead pulling station and just pull it back, and it repositions it where you want it. So that's another plus for that. Okay, so I could explain away all day, but until you see it, you know, it's a lot easier to understand the process. The problem is that you can't get a real bird's eye view of what I'm doing, I don't think. I practiced a little bit. I did a little video recording before, and it was okay, but it wasn't great, and I could tell that the sound was really, really bad. So I will be aware of that. So just bear with me. We'll do a few beads, then I'm going to just do a couple of these corrugated beads first, and then I'll do a copper bead and apply some of the little floral wafers to those, and then show you a cool thing that just happens to the bead when you just put white on it. So let's get started. Okay, so I was explaining that you've got the torch. Let's move it over here. Okay. So I've got my torch set up. You sit straddling the torch canister. Okay, so you have one leg on each side of the torch canister. It is C-clamped to my table, so it is secure. You have to also be aware that this brass torch head stays extremely hot for a long time. So when you're reaching, you want to make sure that you don't hit your arms on that. So you want to have everything set up basically at your fingertips. You don't want to have to be moving around a lot while you're torching. So I have my quench glass right here. I just have an old jelly jar. Any kind of jar will do, with water in it. I've got my mandrels in there. They are 1/16 and 3/32. You need to have the 1/16, which is the skinniest one, to fit in these bead holes. In these beads from China, the majority of them have a very small bead hole. And sometimes, these are fine, but sometimes they need to be reamed out a little bit. Let's see. Let's ignore that phone call. Let me grab my glasses. Okay. Okay, so like I was saying, sometimes the bead holes are very small, and you want to make sure that you can get your mandrel in there properly. So you need to have a skinny mandrel. On some of the other pieces, like when I do a copper disc or the copper balls, they have a larger hole. So you can use the 3/32 mandrel on that with no problem. Okay. Now also, when you first use a mandrel that hasn't been used before, the beads tend to slip a little bit until you get that first coat of enamel on them. So you just have to be careful and just be aware of these things. Okay. All right. So I have a box of matches that I keep by my torch. All right. And I have a white opaque enamel that I use as my base coat. I generally give 2 coats of white over these beads first. This is an opaque, and then I have some other opaques and transparents that I use. So you'll want all your enamels that you're going to work with their lids off. Okay. With immersion, you need to have a little more enamel than maybe you're used to working with. There's quite a bit. You don't have to necessarily have this much in a can, but these are, I like to use an 8-ounce can. I find that these are a lot easier to work with, and I kind of tip them to the side a little bit so I can get in there and dredge the enamel powder in there real well. There are 4-ounce tins as well, and those are fine for beads. But if you are trying to enamel some larger pieces, sometimes these are a little bit constraining. So I'm just pointing that out, so in case you haven't bought supplies and you want to buy supplies, if you start off on the right foot getting the right size cans, and I don't think I have it in my handout, but I will put it in there. The cans that have the lids that screw on like this, I like much better. It's just a little bit of a thread, not much. They're not perfect, but they're pretty decent jars. There are other tins that are sold like for candle making, and those are okay, but those they kind of just push on. It's not really a snap-on lid, but it's not got any threads on it. And those are okay, but I find I get more, if you tip them, sometimes they leak, and I kind of don't like that. Who wants to waste the enamel powder? So that's something to keep in mind. So these are 80 mesh enamels that I'm going to do the beads with. For the headpins, I use what's called a 60 mesh, and it's like little glass chips, or frit. It's known as sometimes in the glass world, but it's a thicker, rougher, choppy cut of the glass, and I'll show you why we use that when we do the headpins. Okay, so I've got my little bread pan. The purpose of that is to catch the hot bead when it falls off, when it comes off the mandrel. In the beginning, we were using vermiculite in the pan, and then that seemed to, some beads were fine with that, but there's an element of timing when you are dropping the bead off of the mandrel, and if the enamel is still very liquidy, for lack of a better word, wet or whatever, and it falls onto the vermiculite, then you get little dents in there from the vermiculite. And then we went over to an oil dry material that is kind of like a kitty litter type of substance, but I wasn't really crazy about that either, so I just decided nothing is better in there than anything that could dent it. The only thing with this is that if you are doing a lot of beads simultaneously, You want to make sure that you don't drop your hot bead onto another bead that's in the pan. That's not really a big deal. You just kind of shake the pan over a little bit and realize where you have to drop it. So that is a pretty handy little device back there. Okay. You know, I can't recommend the bead pulling station enough if you're going to do beads. If you're doing other items, you can get the items off without it, but it's a pretty handy tool to have. Okay, so I'm going to light my torch. Make sure that it's on there nice and secure. And here comes the noise, folks. Hopefully you'll be able to see me do the process. I will do one and then check back with you. So I'm heating up the bead, and you want it to glow orange, which it does very quickly with these beads since they're so lightweight. Dip it into the enamel immediately. Tap off the excess on the edge. Put it back in the fire. Let it glow again. Put it back in the enamel. Tap it off. Heat it up. Now I'm going to move it and scoot it back a little bit. If you can tell, it's gone down a little bit. There we are. It's gone down the mandrel too far, so I'm going to heat it up and scoot it back. This is where it should be now. Heat it up again. Dip it into the enamel. I'm dredging it like you would chicken. You want to get that hot bead covered right away. Scooting it back up. Okay, the enamel's on there. And now I'm going to heat it back up and then release it on the bead pulling station. When I go to the bead pulling station, I'll set it there, pause for just a second, and then pull back. And then drop it on the floor. That was not expected or intended, but it's okay. Nothing like that, huh? Okay, so now I've got this mandrel that's got the excess glass on it. So I'm heating that up. And then I'm going to dunk it into the water. And by putting it in the water, it releases all the glass. And even though the mandrel looks like it is dirty, it's gotten like fire stain on it, and that's okay. It doesn't have enamel stuck to it, and that's what we want. Okay, so my bead fell off, as you saw, which is why you want to work in a heat protected area. I am on a floor, it's a vinyl floor, but it didn't seem to matter because I keep utility pliers with me at all times when I'm doing things with hot things, and I was able to grab it pretty quick, so it didn't do any damage. But that should have been in the bread pan. So terrible first example. All right, let's see. Do you wear special glasses? No, I do not for this. If you had the didymium glasses, you could certainly wear them, but I don't wear it for this. I don't do this for long periods of time, but that's totally up to you. And if you wear darker glasses, they do sell some kind of glasses for glass that aren't didymiums, but they're a real dark green. I've tried those and I don't like those at all because you can't see what colors you're doing. It kind of mutes that all out. So, but that's a good question and good to know. All right, let's see here. Okay, I'm going to do another one. Were you able to hear me at all while I was doing that? Because I feel like I have to talk real loud, but I don't really have that loud of a voice, so I hope you could hear it at least. All right, so, and always remember, once you take your bead off of the bead pulling station, put it immediately into the water, because you could pick that mandrel up not realizing that you just used that one and it's really hot. So, and I have done that many times, so just try to remember to put it, always put your mandrel back into the water. Okay, you could hear me? Okay, good, good. All right, well, I'm going to do another one like that, and hopefully I won't drop it, and then we'll move on to a copper bead after that. So, also, if you overfire, sometimes you'll burn the color off, which is not really a great look, but sometimes it can work to your advantage, depending on the color. White is especially good overfired, and I will show you that when I do one of the copper beads. All right, so I'm going to do a larger corrugated one. So I've got my bead on the mandrel, my matches. Want it to look smooth and shiny all the way around. And burn off that excess enamel. And put it in the water. Okay. And as the bead cools, the color comes out. It's not perfect, but it's okay. And this is where I'm talking about having the excess, I don't know if you can see that. There's a little lip of enamel sticking up next to the hole. I can crack that off with my pliers later, but when you do that, you do risk chipping the enamel a little bit. But let's see. Oh my gosh, am I butterfingers today or what? Sorry, guys. Thankfully, it can't go too far. Okay. So, I'm just going to crack that little piece off. Okay? All right. All right, let's see here. Yeah, it's, Jennifer, there is always risk. Always risk with any of the stuff that we do. Okay, so here's a copper bead. The first one I'll do just all white and show you what overfired white looks like. Okay. As the metal heats up, gets super hot, some of the copper molecules kind of come through that white enamel and turn kind of a bluish green, more on the green side, I'd say. But it's a pretty cool look sometimes. You can get some nice speckling on there. You can also stay on your bead too long and melt the bead. So you want to be cautious when you're heating it up, not to go too far. It's amazing how fast the enameled bead sticks to the mandrel. It's like the minute you take it off the heat, it's like stuck on there. I'm putting quite a few coats on this. I generally put about 3 coats of enamel on, but on the white I tend to add a little bit more. Sometimes the copper beads will distort just slightly, and I generally have found that when I put the little floral wafers on there, but it doesn't really affect how they look. They still look great. This is sliding back a little bit, so I'm going to scoot it back up. I'm trying to bring out those little copper molecules without melting my bead. Can you see the little speckles that are starting to come out? All right, I'm going to take this off now. Pause for a second, and then pull it off. Okay. So now the copper will take much longer to cool off. It's a much thicker bead, and it is going to take some time for that to cool. So avoid the temptation to want to pick that up and check it out. I know I've taught some classes sometimes where people just get so impatient they want to see what they just did, and they stick their hand into that bread pan and owie. You don't want to do that. You want to let your beads cool thoroughly before you touch them. Okay, let's see. I've got a question here. Why don't you use bead release on mandrel, and why don't you use your regular torch? Well, first of all, the bead release would probably just crack and get into the enamel powder. So I don't think that that's a good choice. Although I've never tried that, and I guess I should, but I have the feeling that the bead release would contaminate the enamel. The other thing is I did the demo on this torch because a lot of people don't have a lamp working torch, and this is kind of appealing to people who want to enamel but they don't want to invest a fortune into a torch, into a lamp working torch. So this is a very affordable way to go for this type of enameling. So I hope that makes sense, Antoinette. Hey, Rhonda. Okay. Yeah, Elaine, you got to be prepared for just about anything. You know, I've had too many things happen, you know, not intentionally, but it's like you've got to be quick, number one. And you have to be prepared. You have to have stuff in there, stuff ready at right at your side to pick that up. Yes, Antoinette, that when I do enameling anymore, when I'm by myself, I use my lampwork torch because I've got it all set up. It's quiet compared to this, and I just don't find the need to use this when I have that. So yeah, definitely, if you have a lamp working torch, I would use that. So, okay. Hey, Nancy. All right, so let's see. All right. The copper bead is probably still hot. And I've got a little piece of enamel hanging over. Let me see if I can get this on a mandrel to show you. Okay. This is where I get into trouble. See how, I hope you can see that. The little, well, they look more blue to me than green right now, but little speckles on there. So, you know, you can get more. It just depends on how long you want to keep it in the fire. It definitely is doable to do more if you want. Okay, so that's one thing. Now I'm going to do one with some little floral wafers on there, and I will pick a different color. Yeah, Mary, I don't think a silversmithing torch would be good in this application. You need something that is clamped down, and I think that would probably burn too hot too. You'd probably just burn your enamel all up. All right, so let's do one with some Millefiori on it. Let me get my Millefiori ready. That is very key to be prepared, and I think I got my, okay, let's see what I've got here. I probably don't have, I have a little container of assorted Millefiori that are not the best. I guess I grabbed the wrong one. Hang on a second, guys. These are too crummy. Okay, these are better. All right. So I'm just going to spill a few of them out here on my working surface. Excuse me. And I'll probably just put like 4 on this one. Well, maybe more. It's a fairly large bead. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm doing, is just putting out some Millefiori here, or floral wafers as they are called. If you go online to Thompson Enamels, I think Jean Van Bretterode carries these too, but I initially found them on Thompson Enamel, and they go by floral wafers. All right. Okay. So let's see here. I think I'm all set up still. Yes, Brenda, it is. It's 104. To my knowledge, it's 104, but I'll tell you what, these are so small that if they weren't, it probably wouldn't matter. They would still probably be, well, they are compatible. I've not had any problem with them. So I'm going to assume they are 104. All right. So let's go with another. And always light your torch. This is important. Light your torch from the bottom lip of your torch head. If you put it in front, you're going to just blow the flame out, okay? going to stop right here for a second to tell you something. If you don't get a solid coat on your first dip, that means your bead was not hot enough, okay? And your subsequent layers of enamel will not cover as well. So it's really important that first coat is the most important coat that you put on your bead, okay? This is a nice, consistent application. And when you're sticking it in the enamel, you want to have your cup tipped and your enamel loose so that you can dredge in here. Just kind of imagine like you're coating chicken or something with flour. You want to get it in here, but the quickness is the key here for good coverage. The bead has to be nice and hot, and it has to go into the enamel immediately because these cool so fast in the regards of the enamel sticking to the hot bead. That's the whole premise behind the immersion method. And another thing, now that I'm thinking about it, is your metal does not have to be clean either. The fire burns all that off. So that's kind of a plus, a nice little bonus. Okay, so, and another thing, it doesn't matter that I'm doing this right now, that I've taken it out of the heat. I can reintroduce it into the heat. It won't have done any harm to it. I could take any of the enamel pieces that I've done previously, a year ago, whatever, a month ago, a week ago, a year ago, and put them back into the heat, but very slowly. I would start way high out in the warm area of the flame, and as the piece starts to heat up, I'll draw it slowly back into the flame, so that way and if your piece is cracked, heal it. So it can make it look all better and take that crack away. I don't know how to describe that any better than that, but that happens sometimes. So by putting it back into the fire gradually, you could add something or change a color if you wanted to, add a color, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with this. I've got 2 coats of white. I'm going to melt that in, and then I'm going to switch over to a transparent blue. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a Millefiori. Place it on there. Can you see how the flowers are on there now? They've spread out into the heat. Okay. Okay. Yes, they do grow. They do. They spread out. Now let's see. I will, because I live dangerously, stupidly and dangerously. Well, probably if you're going to do this, you should keep your pliers down here so it can't roll back down and hit your hand. Okay. So I see that I have a little bit of enamel that is just slightly, I would say it's burned just a tiny bit on this side, but it's not bad. But I think it looks, look how beautiful that copper green is. That is just such a pretty, pretty color. Okay. All right, so I'll let that cool properly. And let's see about this other one. Boy, that white one still got some heat in it, but not bad. But that little blue speckly stuff is cute on there. Okay. So I'm going to do one of these iron beads and do kind of like a different tone effect on here. Okay, let's see here. When you're done, can you talk about how you have a canister attached to your bench and what is the fireproof surface? Okay. Okay, yeah, Mish, absolutely. Absolutely. I will go over that. Yeah, the copper green, Tammy, it's misleading because it really is more of a blue, but it's beautiful. Oh yeah, I need to do head pins too, but let myself out of here. Okay, I will do head pins after I do this a couple different colors on here, okay? And then I will get to those. All right, because these can be kind of fun, where you can kind of mix up the colors. All right, so let's do the white, and then I will do lime yellow in a transparent, and sunset orange. Okay, I'll do like Caribbean colors. All right, here we go again. That's 2 coats of the white. I'm just dipping a little portion into the blue. I think I just covered up my yellow. Now with this one, I moved it back. I pushed it back instead of pushing the bead forward. So I'm going to take it off. If your bead doesn't want to release easily, then you need to rewarm the mandrel. Take that very carefully and let it go down. I got way too much enamel on that mandrel. Okay, so I'm going to let that cool and then I will show that to you. And then we'll start with the headpins. Okay, headpins. Okay, so I've pre-cut some pieces of 20 gauge wire. Maybe, I don't know, between 2 and 3 inches long. It depends on what you're going to use them for. I usually tend to make them a little larger because, or longer, I should say, because if I want to do any twisting, you know, make any tendril type designs on there, then I've got the wire to do so. Okay, what material is this silver looking bead? Tammy, that is an iron bead. Believe it or not, some of these beads, they're iron beads. And I initially got them through Painting with Fire when I was taking some of their classes, and you can still buy them on their Etsy store. You can also find them online. If you do a Google search for iron beads, you can find them. They're extremely lightweight. You can burn through them pretty fast if you're not careful. But generally they work out pretty well. Some of them even separate in the middle, and you can kind of make bead caps out of them, but they're very large bead caps. But I'm sure there's use for all of those. Okay? All right, so for head pins, I'm going to use the 620 enamel. That in front of me here. And this is, I use my utility pliers. These are just cheap, like $2 pliers from Harbor Freight. They work real good. And I'm just going to heat up the tip portion of this wire, and then I'm going to dip it in the can and get a few of those little grains of enamel. Or you could liken it to frit if you're familiar with frit. It's just like little chunks of enamel just chunked up, okay, instead of ground fine. All right, so here we go with that. See that okay? So you will need to stick these in the pickle, or, well, I'll talk about that when I'm done. Okay, so that's a purple one. And I'm just laying them down on my heat-proof surface. Just putting the tip of the wire in the fire. Okay. Mish, the powder doesn't tend to stick on like this does. I have tried it both ways, but the 620 is the recommended method for adhering nice amounts of enamel on the tips of the head pins. Okay, so I'll show you these. Now, the enamel part's hot, but the bottom of these pins are not. Okay? So, pretty cool, isn't it? Karen, I don't know about, could I use these 90 or 96 COE course? All I could say is just try it. I really don't know. Frit, I imagine, well, I don't know, Chrissy. I could try it. I have some frit right here. I could try it. If you're game, I'll go grab a color of frit and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, these are really sweet, and you can add these to lots of different things. I like to make little enamel flowers on the ends of the pins and make like a little bouquet with them. I think they're really cute. But yeah, you can twist them and incorporate them into a jewelry design that looks real cute. Hang on, I'm going to get some frit. Okay, I've got some 104 COE frit, which is just coarse crushed glass. And we'll try it, because that's how you learn. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. All right. Whoa, well, that one dropped off, but that was not the fritz problem. All right, if you noticed, I dropped the tip dropped off of the end of the wire. It was too big, and it fell off. Sometimes when you try to make these head pins too big, it's the wire, the fire is on the wire, and it kind of burns it off. So I don't know how else to describe that, but try not to get greedy, if you will, to get a really large head on the pin. I mean, you can try it, but be prepared for it to fall off. So that way it doesn't fall off in your lap. But yeah, this is the 104 frit. I would just have to see how it holds up, but I think it would be okay. Yes, Rhonda, you are right. That in the beginning, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I have a longer head pin or a longer piece of wire that I just did both ends on, so that way you could twist it into a design, you know, something like that. I mean, you have to come up with some ideas for this stuff. I do it on occasion, but unless I'm specifically got a specific project in mind, you know, I just make them because I enjoy making them. I like to have lots of components around, so that way I can just draw from whatever and get it. Yeah, Chrissy, it's probably a go. I'd like to have that cool off and see if it stays on or cracks or anything, but it looks pretty good. Yeah. So, okay, let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Tammy, how do the head pins and beads differ in the process than when you enameled other things you've shown us? You didn't have to use a spray before you torch enamel these? No. No, this is an entirely different method, you know, than using a tripod or using a kiln. This is just immersing the hot metal into enamel powder, and it sticks, it adheres to that, to the torched piece of metal. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to have anything stick. It is a pretty instant gratification type technique, in my opinion. Usually when I've taught this class, people are hooked, like immediately. I know when Rhonda, my friend Rhonda, who's on here today, Rhonda and my friend Cynthia, we went up to Milwaukee to a bead and button show class by Barbara Lewis. And I don't remember the year, maybe 2011, something like that. We drove up there for the day and took her class. And the three of us were just like, we were just amazed. It was like, oh yeah, we had to buy all the stuff. We had to buy all the stuff because we just absolutely loved it. And enameled to our heart's delight for a long time. And still do. We like to do the different techniques, and it's just great fun. But I went on to do some other classes with Barbara Lewis, and I got my certification in her torch firing method. So I was free to teach it, and it's been a hit. It's been an instant hit with all my students. So I can't tell you how much I love it. If I can't throw it in the torch or do it on the torch, I think twice about it sometimes. But you can't do everything on the torch. You just really can't. But I mean, in this method, you can do larger flat pieces. I've done sgraffito like this. I do decals like this with no problem whatsoever, and hand painting on the beads as well. You can take the bead. You know, when I was showing you when the bead was white and I held it up to you and it was stuck to the mandrel. Well, you can leave it stuck to the mandrel if you've got your coats of enamel on it that you wanted, and then you can take the acrylic enamel paints and you can paint on that bead while it's on the mandrel, so you've got something to hold on to while you're doing the bead, while you're doing the painting, and then you fire it the same way, and it's pretty cool, you know. So you can do that. You can put decals on those little beads too. You know, you can put little small decals and stick them on there. There's just a a ton of different enameling techniques. So let me look here. Mary, it's a great refresher for me. I took Barbara's class some years ago, but I never pursued it. And you have brought it all back to me. Good. Well, you know, one of the best things I do is enable people. Sorry, but sorry, not sorry, you know, because I think everybody needs fun stuff that they're excited about doing. You can get in a rut sometimes. Your creative mojo just kind of takes a hike, and you know, it's just fun to explore different things. So Oh, you're welcome, Mish. I am always happy to enable. Let's see. Do I have a materials list handy and where to buy? I have a few things, a few resources on the handout that's going to be available soon. I will add the, gosh, now I forgot what I was going to add that I didn't have on the list, but I'll look this over again and see what else I need to add. But if you go to Painting with Fire on Etsy, Barbara's page has the majority of the materials. If you don't see the bead pulling stations on there, I didn't check prior to this video. if you didn't see that, excuse me, one sec. If you don't see the bead pulling station, inquire, because I would certainly think that they have more of those in stock. But yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend that. I don't get any kickback or anything like that. I'm just sharing all this stuff with you because I enjoy it and I believe it's a good product. As far as the bead pulling station, I've not found anything else that really compares to that. And yeah, I mean, there's tons of places. Oh, it was the tins. I wanted to write down on my resource list where I got the tins from. So the fireproof mat that I have, you know, I don't know if you can still get it, but you can use a cookie sheet. Let's see here if I can bring that down. It's just, I'm going to take the camera out of the holder here for a minute. Okay, so I've got the torch head, not on the table here. This is, I've got an extra one. I wasn't sure how much gas I had left in that torch. Let me see if I can just turn this camera around. Okay. All right. So this is the hose clamp right here. And then this is an angle bracket that I bent up just a little bit so that it fits on the table properly. And it's just C-clamped to the edge of my table. And then that is the heat-proof surface that I bought. You might be able to still find these like on Amazon or someplace, but a plain old cookie sheet works great. It's just that this lip here where the cookie sheet is raised, you might want to just smash that down a little bit so that you can get your angle bracket on there. If you go to the dollar store, you know, you can get a cheap cookie sheet, you know, for $1, smash it down and just put that, you know, save it for this purpose. This is probably a better view of the torch or the bead pulling station, like that. If you have a ceramic tile and you want to use that as your heat-proof surface, you can, that lip that's underneath here, you can just put your tile under there. But this is holding, this is held securely on here because this is C-clamped down to the table, this part. And if you had a tile, I would still C-clamp on the tile and then put your bead pulling station on there, so that is not going to move when you are pulling your beads off. Okay, so that is that. What else? I just used a jelly jar for that. You could use an old mayonnaise or pickle jar or something. Just make sure when you set up that you're set up, you know, to, for whatever hand you're dominant in. Like I'm right-handed, so I keep my water and my mandrels on my right side. I keep all my jars on my left side, and I hold them like this in my hand as I'm heating up the bead, so I have easy access to dredge that bead immediately. Okay. On my tins also, I mark down the color and the number on the can itself, and then also on the lid, because I found out real quick when you're teaching classes, the lids can get mixed up, and sometimes they have enamel on the top of them. It's very common. Think you can see there, I spilled some over there, but there is enamel in the top of that yellow one, and you want to put them back in the right, on the right can. There's a little shot of my enamels right there. My husband made that for me. I was so happy that he did that. I had that space in between the closets, and those closet doors swing open, so I couldn't put anything with any depth on that wall, any other kind of shelving. So he made the shelves just the right width so I could put the cans of enamel on there, and it's been pretty handy. So okay, so I guess that's going to wrap this demo up. If you have any questions about the process, feel free to message me. If you decide to take the plunge and you make some stuff, make sure you post it on our group page, because I like to encourage people and they can see what they can do or what's been done. And it's just fun to share. I love to share my stuff with you guys. I also wanted to mention, I'm going to put this guy back in the holder so I can have my hands free. Oop. Okay. I wanted to mention also that next week, yeah, I do have a lot of enamels. One thing I can say is my good buddy Rhonda and I, we share a lot of stuff. We buy together, and so we can buy bigger containers and split it, so then we don't have like that big cost individually. So that's a win-win for us. It works out well. We do that with a lot of things. Okay, so next week, what I'm going to do is this ornament. It's a copper ornament made with a Potter pancake die ornament, and also the little tree from Potter, and it's riveted on. And what I've done is I have embossed a bunch of these ornaments and trees, and I am making kits available. It's not really a kit, it's just these two pieces that you can make your own ornament if you want, and I will show you how to do that next week. So if you want to order any of these, I did put a little blurb about it in a post, just a few posts down on the page, about their price and the shipping. But if you want them for next Wednesday, you better let me know like ASAP so I can get them in the mail possibly tomorrow, so you can get them in time. But even if you didn't get it in time, it's something that you could do anytime. So so just let me know if you want them, and I will pass that along. I'll get those out to you, is what I mean. Then, so that's next Wednesday. Then the following Wednesday, I'm going to do this little tiny birdhouse. And this is kind of fun. It's just slightly challenging, but not bad. I mean, I'm sure if you've done any soldering at all, I'm sure you can do this just fine. So what you need, I wanted to tell you, if you want to make it along with me, I'm not going to make kits for this. If you want to make this, you need, let me see here. What I used on that one was, this is a little copper coupling that you get in the plumbing department at a hardware store. And this is, I think it's approximately 1 inch by 1.5. I think it's 1 inch tall, 1.5 or ½ inch wide. And on the ones that I bought, they have a number stamped on them. I've not seen them without it. They also sell couplings that have a ridge around the center. Don't get that one. Get the one that is just plain and smooth like that. Then you will also need 2 7/8 inch copper discs. Okay, so You need that. And then you need just a small strip of copper. This is probably bigger. And this is just a piece of scrap I picked up. A little scrap of copper that we're going to write, you know, a word on. Home is what I wrote on that. But you could even put somebody's name on it if you wanted to. That we're going to solder over the part that has the numbers in the copper pipe. So that way it conceals that, you won't see it. And I just think it looks cute. So that is a possibility. If you cannot find this copper coupling or don't have the ability to make the 2 discs, let me know, and I can make some for you and set it out, send them out to you. But you should be able to find those things. Okay, so that's going to be it for today, girls and boys. And hopefully you got something out of this today, and tell your friends about our group page, and I shall see you next week. In the meantime, you can always message me if you have questions or concerns or anything like that. Okay? All right, guys. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.